Welcome to Bennett Fishing, folks, your #1 resource for lake trout jigging, and all things lake trout. I'm Josh. Today we're going to go over one of the most common questions I get. What bait are you using for lake trout? What is your #1 bait for lake trout? So I'm going to actually go over my top 5 baits for lake trout. I have Jason in the boat that just missed one. Top 5 baits for lake trout, and I'm going to start with my least favorite bait first and kind of show you how to fish it, and then go work my way up. So if you want to help support the channel, visit bennettfishing.company.site. This is where I sell some of the baits that I'm going to be talking about. That helps support the channel, helps videos like this, helps you guys catch more lake trout. So my least favorite bait for lake trout out there is the infamous bucktail. So this is a Spro bucktail. It's 2 ounces. It's got a big hook on it, and it's got physical, white-tailed deer bucktail tied to the back. There is some advantages and some disadvantages to a bucktail. I'll go over them real quick. So one of the disadvantages to a bucktail, and I've seen it on underwater camera, is if it's a hard bait and you're missing bites or something like that, or if you're feeling like they're light striking, or they hit it and they spit it out, it's because they're actually spitting it out. So just like most fish, and especially trout species in general, so lake trout are in the char family, just like brook trout, they do a lot of tasting. They don't have any hands. They have some sense of smell, that kind of stuff. So even when a lake trout or even a brook trout is trying to look for food, even if they're in a stream and that water is coming past them, they'll bite onto sticks and rocks and leaves, all sorts of stuff, because they think it's a bug. So the problem with this is it's very hard. Like, it's a hard object. I know you guys can't hear that. I got wind blowing right in my face. It's a hard object, and I've actually seen them bite and literally spit it out the instant they bite it because it's hard. So I'll show you how to fish it anyways. Not my favorite. There's one great advantage of a bucktail. They literally last forever unless you lose them. The hair will last on there forever. There's no plastic swim bait to pull down. They're extremely durable. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop it down, and I'm gonna kind of back up here and see if I can show you how I'm presenting the bait. So what we're gonna do with the bucktail, just like a couple of other jig style things, and we are jigging, we're not doing any trolling, we're gonna hit bottom, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna snap it off bottom a bunch of times. What that's gonna do is make a bunch of noise on the bottom, and it's gonna basically make a fake feeding frenzy on the bottom. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna reel it up, probably like halfway up the water column, and hopefully something will bite it and chase it. So I just had someone chase me right there. And another trick is to just hold it above bottom and wait till fish come in till you like this one. Oh my goodness. Got one, finally. Don't be afraid to really set the hook on fish. Using a 15-pound braid, 20-pound leader for these particular fish, and an FG knot is my leader to braid knot, and then I'm using a polymer knot for the rest of it. There's one. Not very big, but nice one. So bucktails come in a bunch of different sizes. This is a 2 ounce. This is a 1 ounce, or just over 1 ounce. If you're gonna buy bucktails, because they come in large sizes and they're really heavy, get ones that are heavy as possible, and get ones that glow. Neither one of these glow. That's probably why I was not getting hit really on bottom. We're in 90 feet of water. Now my #4 choice for jigging for lake trout would be what's called a flutter spoon. So they come in a bunch of different sizes. Flutter spoons and casting spoons are slightly different. Usually they're a little heavier, so if you can see the profile of these, and any sort of shiny metallic on one side and blue on the other works great, or even black. Castmaster also makes one, so these are heavy, a lot heavier. So in that 1 ounce, 2 ounce range, anything that's gonna get down there quick. And I'll show you how to fish them real fast. So they fish a little bit different than a bucktail. And they are, I call them a tractor bait, or a reaction strike, if you want to call it that. So they shine down there tremendous, even at that 80 to 100 foot mark. So this is probably, I don't know, 3/4 of an ounce. So one thing about a flutter spoon is it will called scope out. So if here's your center line and where you want the jig to be right below you, they'll actually shoot out to one side or shoot out to the other side. That is one of the reasons why I don't like them, because they kind of shoot off into Never Never Land. There's one way to stop that, is what you can do is stop your line for a minute and let your spoon swing underneath you. That helps a lot. And another reason I don't like jigging spoons that much, why they're my number 4, is they usually come with treble hooks. You usually have to upgrade the treble hooks, one, because usually they're too light for lake trout, unless they're specific for lake trout. And then 2, they really mangle the fish. I don't like fishing with treble hooks unless I really have to. So we're close to bottom. We're about 10 feet from bottom. What we want to do with a flutter spoon is we want to rip it. So I want to snap jig it. And what that's going to do, I'll show you with this big spoon, is it's coming down like this. And when you rip it up, it flutters like this and shines light absolutely everywhere. It is a huge attractor to lake trout in the area. So if you can see the shine on that, that one is a little too big for this size lake trout. They will eat it, but it's just not as common. So we're going to kind of do the same thing, get it close to bottom, and then rip it, let it flutter, rip it, let it flutter. And what will happen is you'll either get a strike on the way down, and you'll go to rip up and there'll be a fish there. He's on you. And I'm not sure if I'm going to catch one on a spoon right now. Sometimes they're on spoons, sometimes they're not.
They're all coming after you.
I know. So I just got to chase. I can see on the sonar, and I'll show you what I'm looking at here in a minute. I just got slack lined. Got him. Got him. So I was snapping it, letting it flutter, snapping and let it flutter, just to lure in fish. And then you reel it away from them to get that reaction bite out of them. So there's that spoon hanging out of his mouth. Give you another look at him right there. So they're bleeding a little bit just because of that treble hook. Yes, I could have swapped hooks out. But that's kind of a pain in the butt. I actually broke a hook trying to unhook that fish. So flutter spoons work for sure. And I'll leave recommendations for flutter spoons below down in the description, because I know you guys will ask. My number 3 would be the tube jig. Now there's 2 different ways to run a tube jig. Most people run it the normal way, which is called horizontal. And I'll show you that in a minute. But what I'm doing is running a vertical tube jig. And what that does is it helps with line twist. So here's a horizontal tube jig. So you have a big lead weight in there, or a normal size jig hook. And that bait will actually sit on the line just like this. And what happens with a lot of tube jigs is they spin and they twist up your line on the way down. But they have a lot of life to them. So I'm gonna work that the same way I'm gonna do the next couple baits. And then for a vertical tube, what we have is an inline weight just like this, and either a treble hook or a single hook hanging off the bottom. And this particular one is chartreuse glow. So glow baits work the best. I've tried non-glow, and glow just seems to outproduce everything else. So I'm gonna actually show you what we're seeing on my sonar real quick. So the red line on the right-hand side of the screen is my jig. So tube jig, what you can do is you can bounce it right on bottom and literally just kind of like little bunny hops down there. And what you want that thing to do is kind of like bounce on bottom like that. You can also cast any of these things that we're using and kind of hop them back to you. So hop, hop, hop. That's very successful too. The problem is you got to make sure that you are angled properly to set the hook. So if you're off at a 45-degree angle casting out there, you want to make sure that you're setting that hook properly. Vertical hook setting is a lot easier, just straight up. So I'm using LiveScope Plus right now. It's actually LiveScope XR. It's a very expensive unit, but I'm running the normal 2D on the side here to show you what it would look like. So let me show you what we call pounding bottom or snap jigging on bottom. drag my jig over here. We're gonna go loose to bottom, tighten it up a little bit, just so we're tight. And then we're gonna jig it, snap jig it. So that jig is gonna come up a foot, down a foot, up a foot, down a foot. And that's resembling like a dying bait fish on the bottom or something like that. A lot of people prefer white, a lot of people prefer white glow. I'm used to using the chartreuse glow just because that's what I had on. And I got one chasing me. Oh, he's big too. And tubes are just not my confidence bait. I know if you ask anybody, white tubes are what you want for lake trout. There's one other downside of tubes I don't think people like realize or talk about a lot, is they don't have any like actual physical noise or action to them unless you add like a little spoon onto the back. So there's no like audible thump or water disturbance when they're down there. All they have are those little tentacles that move, you know, with just a little bit of water or a little bit of movement to your rod, which is sometimes all you need. You can be, you know, call it kind of a finesse scenario. And so one advantage to the vertical tube is you won't get as many short strikes. So with tubes like this, if it's vertical like that, they can bite this back part and they'll never hit that hook. So a lot of people put stingers on there with treble hooks, and it really just mangles up the fish. I'm doing a lot of, obviously, catch and release. We're at 17 fish right now, so we're having difficulty getting one on the tube here. That's why it's number 3. But I know everybody loves it. It's not my confidence bait. When you're normally traditionally rigging it perpendicular to your line, it does have some action of twist on the way up. So that helps. Like a lot of bait fish don't swim in a direct pattern, and we just don't have any really like lake trout below us right now. But tube would be number 3. We're gonna switch anyways. You get 2 on you. So you're using tube, right?
Yep.
So Jason's using a white tube right now. He just hooked up. So it is doable. My number 2 bait would be a 4.75 inch white glow, or like pearl glow, with a 1 ounce chartreuse head. Everything glows on here with a 5/0 hook. Now these last 2, I've spent the last 3 years putting together like good patterns that work for lake trout on all the lakes. I've fished all over New England, and these baits just seem to work fantastic. They just are very generic. Now I have found some days where they're on swim baits, and I have found some days that they're on spoons. So you gotta have a good arsenal like when they switch on and off of particular baits. I don't know why they do that. The bait where we are right now is alewives. They're around, they change size. So if you're having trouble like getting hookups or getting bites, downsize. That's what I found works best for pretty much all species really. So the swim bait, what we can do is do what's called a chase. So we're gonna hit bottom. I know you guys can't see this, but we're just gonna reel up. And that tail is going thump, 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 all the way up. And that's making noise in the area that can lure in lake trout. So I got one coming in right now. And so with swim baits, we can reel away from them and react like a bait fish that's swimming away. And we can start a few more chases. I'm just reeling away from the bottom basically, and I'm dropping back to bottom. Now, if you're having issues with any sort of plastics ripping, it's because they're not made for predator fish like lake trout, which just have teeth. A lot of these swim baits and stuff are designed for bass that have those, sandpaper teeth that don't really destroy baits as much. We get 2 coming in right now. A huge part of that is that rubber bait texture. It feels like a fish. And so I was reeling away from that fish, the classic chase as we call it. Another one going right back in, folks. Now for number 1, you've all been waiting for, is the 6-inch Super Glow Clear Grub Tail. Now this has it's kind of a finesse bait but it's big enough not to be a finesse bait. You want to rig it just like you do a swim bait. Put it over the double hook keeper, just like that. And you can rig it this way so it's curling towards the hook or away from you, it doesn't matter. Sometimes they'll get caught on there. And so there's a big reason why it's clear. So these are the ones that I make specifically for lake trout, so they're a little more durable than bass baits. Is the glow-in-the-dark powder works best when it has access to full light, and it shines the best when it has access to full light. So there's no pearl in there at all. It's just straight glow and clear. So this is the #1 bait. If you've watched any of my bigger lake trout videos, like physically bigger lake trout, I've caught hundreds of lake trout on this bait. And I will work it the same way as a swim bait. I will pound bottom, I will rip it up and down. It's like just extremely versatile in the way that it works. And a lot of the bites that we're getting right now is what's called a chase. So he's chasing one right now, or he had one chase him. We're literally just holding our jigs off bottom until we see a fish and then running away from them. One, because they know it's an artificial, we know it's an artificial, so we don't want to give that lake trout a huge amount of time to see the bait and kind of ignore it. And so running the instant you see the fish says their instinct just catches in, kind of like a cat and mouse. Like a mouse can just stay still and the cat doesn't want to play with it, but once that mouse starts running away, cat's like, game on. Got another one. Mine's a big one. I almost goosed you with the net
I know,
there.
I thought it was going to happen. I was waiting for it.
That's being nice. This is a bigger fish. $29 3/4, guys. Good. But like I said, if you guys want to support the channel and support the baits that I'm using in this video, I am doing another limited release of the big bait kit on my website. I'm benditfishing.company.site. I'll leave that right here and below, and all of the baits that I'm using in the top 5, because I want you guys to go out there and catch more lake trout. So if you want to learn some of the techniques that we're doing in this video, or see a vlog style video from this this particular lake, click here for the how-to video and click here for the vlog style video. One of the days here we caught 111 lakers. So see you on the next video.